I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's about 11 a.m.
Okay, so you're somewhat behind us here in London. You've got the whole day ahead of you. Uh, you're the creator of kind of a hit YouTube channel, how to make everything, uh, which basically is about your journeys in reverse engineering everyday products or things that we take for granted in the modern world, and kind of getting back to the basic principles of production. How did you get started on this? It's quite the journey.
Yeah, I guess I was just started out being curious about where everything that we use every day comes from. For me, it started with food, and at the time, I was really getting into like cooking and kind of starting to realize like you can make stuff, you can make a dish from scratch, but like pretty much nobody's like going out and growing their own wheat and grinding it up, and just kind of realizing there's all these steps like you don't really think about every day, and it made me wonder like what would happen if you actually did every single step from plant to an animal to your meal. And well, brainstorming ideas, I found that like the sandwich is an odd kind of modern invention of something that is surprisingly complex but so simple to make because it has so many different things in it, that I doubt they were making sandwiches back in prehistoric times. um, and I just kind of discovered there's so many steps you don't think about, and going on that process and explored it, and it was a really fascinating journey. And after I finished the sandwich, I realized I could apply that to basically anything in everyday life, and realized like there's so much I don't know. So I just kind of started exploring everything.
So it started. The chicken sandwich was the original kind of concept. And were you thinking this is going to not only be like an interesting examination of our reliance on supermarkets to sell us flour rather than going out and milling wheat or whatever, but were you also thinking this is going to make a really interesting YouTube video? Were you thinking about it as a sort of like social media phenomenon at that time, or were you just purely focused on like the task at hand?
Well, not really for social media, I guess, but I did go to school for filmmaking and had wanted to get into documentary filmmaking. At the time, I was just doing like advertisements, like stuff people you press skip on. So I wanted to make something people wanted to watch. So my goal was to do some sort of project that would get me into the documentary filmmaking arena. I didn't even want to be on camera at first. I just couldn't find anybody else who was willing to do all of this work. Um, so I actually made it as a intended to just a short film documentary, and then ended up going through a process. Tried to pitch it for TV and ended up filming a few episodes to try and make it as a TV show to show like how it would be done, and it didn't go anywhere. And then kind of reluctantly put it on YouTube, where it ended up finding its audience.
Right, right. And it's fair to say the chicken sandwich went viral. I mean, I saw it a few weeks ago. It was being shared on Twitter and it was going absolutely like gangbusters. And I was like, this is brilliant. This is genius. And then I realized it was, 7 years old. This has been around for ages. So it's had a huge shelf life. It keeps finding new fans. Can you talk people through the basics of the process and basically how difficult is it to make a chicken sandwich from scratch?
Yeah. So my the rules were that I can't buy any of the ingredients, and I have to like source them as they're available in nature. So basically, there's things you don't expect to be as difficult as they are. I think the one that was the most surprising was salt. Because I was
Mm.
gonna try and make my own pickles because it's a crucial ingredient for a sandwich. And like I lived in Minnesota, which is in the middle of a continent. There's not really a source of salt water or salt mines or anything. So I ended up having to fly out to the coast, rent a boat, go out, fill a jug, boil it down, get some salt, figure out how to explain that to TSA as I went through security, my bag of white powder, and then use that in it. So that was probably like the most expensive and complicated small ingredient that you don't really think about. But beyond that, it was just having to grow everything and then do the processing, and then processes you don't really think about, like how do you make cheese out of milk, and all of that. It was very eye opening.
Were you just throughout this? Were you just single-minded, thinking this is going to make a really good short documentary? Or were you at times thinking, "Why am I doing this? This is way more complicated than I wanted, or was it just that every new complication made the story more compelling?
I yeah, it was. I was very uncertain about how it was going to turn out, and I think I described the project to a lot of people, and they're like, "Okay," and like they didn't really get it until I had a final video, and like, "Oh," uh, and so it did seem like a little bit of like just going down my own rabbit hole of insanity. Of yeah, I'm gonna fly to L.A. to get some salts that you could just buy at a store for a few cents, and um, I don't know. I think it was just once I committed to it, I was like, I'm going to see this through, and whatever happens with it happens.
And then there's this moment at the end of the video where you bite into the sandwich and you know eat it for the first time, and you say, I think you say, yeah, it's fine. Um, was that bathos, that sort of anticlimactic ending? Was that what you were expecting? Were you sort of aware going through it that maybe the sandwich wasn't going to be stunning?
I think kind of my original idea or curiosity was like homemade cooking is always better. Like, what if you went all the way? Like, it should be even greater. It should be like the best sandwich ever made. So that was my initial thought. I think by the end, like everything was kind of felt like it was falling apart. Like the vegetables I picked were starting to rot. My wheat was just not quite dry enough, so I didn't even know if it was ready to be ground. And it was like I don't know if I'm gonna get a sandwich out of this after all this work. So then at that point, I was just like happy to have something. Like I had something to look like a sandwich and was at least edible. So at that point, I was satisfied to just reach something. But I think along the way, I realized that I'm not doing this like as a seasoned professional would. Like this isn't quite going to be the best sandwich ever.
So then you released the chicken sandwich video and out on YouTube, and it kind of went out into the world. And did you realize quite quickly that there was a tribe on the internet of people who were very interested in this sort of idea, who for whom it scratched some sort of intellectual itch to see someone doing this sort of back to basics engineering projects of like everyday items? How quickly did it emerge that there was a real audience for this?
I think early on when I started, like whenever I told people about it, I kept running into people who are like, "Oh yeah, I had an idea similar to that." So I was kind of had an inkling that like this is kind of something some people are interested in. There's probably some sort of audience, but it wasn't until it went viral that I realized there's a lot of people who find this at least curious enough to click on. So that was very affirming, I think, to just discover how wide of an audience I could find.
And do you have a sense of where the audience was coming from? Was it, was it coming from the artist formerly known as Twitter, or was it, was it a Reddit phenomenon? Do you know where the kind of the biggest social media push was coming from?
Yeah, it was definitely Reddit because that's where I actually posted it myself, just on a whim, and that was what gave it the initial traction. But I remember watching it that day and just like it taking off, and then like just kind of spreading everywhere, and other websites posting it, and yeah, it's a fun phenomenon to watch.
Right. And when you launched Chicken Sandwich, did you have the difficult second album? Was that already done? Did you have a another video ready to go, or did you have to then think, okay, this one's worked. What else is going to work?
So like I said, I had kind of tried to make this a TV show before, so I had like a whole like I think it was 8 episode season we had made. Some other people helped me, and so then we had other content. The challenge was that the content's not easy to produce. Like the sandwich took over 6 months. Then like I did the suit, and that took over a year, I think. And so I had some initial content, but then the challenge has always been like, how do you keep producing? Because YouTube is like you're supposed to keep producing content to have like a real career there. So that's honestly still trying to figure that out of like how to do projects that take multiple months and produce content that's weekly or bi-weekly or whatever.
Mhm. And of all the things you've done over the years now, what's been your personal favorite, and maybe what's been the hardest, the most like exhausting process?
My usual go-to for my favorite project was chocolate, and I think I just like hit the right combination of like a process I've never really thought about before I took it on, and something that was just delicious the entire way through. Because before that, I didn't know that like it's a fruit that grows on a tree, and there's just a whole fermenting process and drying and uh, all these steps that. never knew about it. It's like I just eat chocolate and yeah, so that was fascinating and delicious in the end.
Hmm.
I think my most challenging I recently revisited was is I was doing a larger project of trying to make my own camera from scratch, and one of the big first steps of that was making a camera lens and grinding. Well, first making optically clear glass, which has been like a multi-year process of figuring out how to make glass that actually turns out clear. Because making glass is kind of simple. Making it actually clear that you can make lenses and stuff out of is very difficult, as I found. But then grinding it to the right amount and getting a quality result has been a challenge that I'm still working out some of the flaws in.
Were you always like this? Were you always someone who was good with their hands, very practical? Were you always someone who wanted to experiment and build stuff? I mean, or is this something you've learned through the process of making your show?
That's something I had in me from the beginning, I guess, to some extent. Of like, I always like to build things and tinker, and was obsessed with Legos and Connects growing up. But I think it's definitely been kind of a rabbit hole of digging deeper into that aspect of myself and taking on projects that I never would have even considered doing before I started the series.
Mm. And when we think about the way that those videos have gone viral and the community of people, whether it's on Reddit or elsewhere who've really engaged with the show that you're making, what do you think the resonance is? Is this just something that people see as a sort of fascinating, oh look, interesting, that's how that's done, look how difficult it is? Do you think people enjoy seeing your the sweat and blood, sweat and tears, or do you think there is also an element of kind of psychological desire to kind of better understand the world that we live in?
Uh, I don't know. I think probably both. I just enjoy the process of kind of tackling a new topic every time because there's always aspects you don't think about or understand. So, um, my personal enjoyment is always with covering a new area that I don't know and
Mm.
learning it hands on.
And do you get like artisans in various industries contacting you to be like, to say all of these skills that have seemingly been lost over the years and have been replaced by all this machinized and sort of consumer capitalism at its most global? Do you get people contacting you being like, you're a great showcase for how stuff can be actually made from scratch, or is it just a sort of curiosity thing?
Uh, like, uh, I mean, it's on YouTube, so a lot of the people who contact me who have experience in that are telling me everything I did wrong.
Okay.
But I think along the way, I try to like reach out to experts in the different fields and talk to them, and it's always fascinating to hear like what they're passionate about and like these kind of lost arts that most people aren't really doing too much today. But there's
Hmm.
usually somebody who's still keeping it alive. It's always really fascinating to tap their mind.
So do you feel like ultimately, for you, this is a project that it feels like to me from our conversation, it is mainly about, what, it's really interesting. It makes an interesting TV show. It's good entertainment. But do you think there is a sense that maybe people have lost touch with kind of the how complicated everyday devices are, how many different supply chains are involved in even a chicken sandwich involves so many different supply chains, so many different industries working in tandem. And I think we then see, supply shocks like the COVID pandemic or the war in Ukraine, and suddenly we realize how fragile everything that our society is built on. Has What's your kind of learnings about kind of this state of our over reliance? Or I shouldn't. I'm leading the witness by saying over reliance, but our reliance on all these different supply chains. What's it taught you?
Yeah, I think that's it's kind of a product of just like modern life is that it's gotten so complex that no nobody even unless you stop to think about it, nobody like realizes how much work goes into all of it. And I think like the supply chain stuff like kind of showed that like there's some cracks in the system and it can cause a lot of problems. So it's like it's I think it's very useful to keep all of this knowledge alive and accessible while understanding that like we have much better ways of doing this than spending 6 months growing a sandwich. But if if those processes break down, it's nice to know like how you can kind of fill in the gaps on your own.
Yeah, yeah. Your video didn't convince me that I wanted to build a like a water mill in my garden in order to, provide energy for my house. I mean, it certainly suggests there are better ways of doing things. So what's next? Do you have is there obviously you've talked about the camera. Is there like a end product? Is there the kind of final thing that you think would round off your adventure in this space? Be like if you could, I don't know, build an iPhone from scratch, or are you just kind of like going to go from one thing to another and see where the adventure takes you?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is just kind of keep going and like see how far I can get. But kind of the big milestone I've put is kind of reaching my own industrial revolution. I've been working my way up through different technologies. I just built like a water wheel and figuring out how to use that to power different things. So getting like an actual steam engine that's up and running, I think it would be like a pretty cool milestone. But I definitely would like to keep going past that and see how far I can get. The camera project is definitely like a big, just personal goal. I think, just like as someone who's creating video content, that like
Mhm.
I would love to be able to make my own video camera that I can actually film the video with, and like my own microphone to record it, and like have a video literally made from scratch.
Right, right. And in terms of the future of the show, I mean, you've got almost 2 million viewers on YouTube, which seems an unfathomably large number to me. Does that mean you can focus on doing this full time? This is your 9 to 5 job, or are you hustling other things too? I don't know how the finances of them work.
Um, yeah, this is pretty much my full time job for the past several years, and it's been kind of a fun journey to be able to just dive right into this.
And there must have been interest for an adaptation for TV at this point. Someone must have seen how many people are watching these videos and thought, you know what, that would be a great Nat Geo TV series or whatever. Is that something you'd still be keen on?
I'm definitely open to it. I did end up shooting a pilot with the Food Network at one point that didn't end up going anywhere. Just kind of how that TV
Yeah.
industry goes. That makes me a little less interested in it, just because it's so fickle that um, I could potentially get like a TV series and maybe it run for 1 year, or I could do YouTube and I can just kind of keep doing this for however long I want.
And do it how you want to do it. And just,
Yeah, exactly.
when it's ready, like the chicken sandwich.
Yeah.